Imagine this: the person you trust the most, the one who shares your bed, your home, and your life, hides a secret that could shatter everything. Emily wasn't searching for trouble that day. She was simply rearranging a seat. But in that quiet moment, she uncovered a truth that shook her world: a second cell phone, carefully tucked away, holding a life she wasn't part of. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you thought you knew inside and out? The pain is raw, but the questions hurt even more. Betrayal often doesn't come with a warning. It sneaks in when you least expect it, leaving you questioning not only your partner but yourself. How do you move forward when the foundation of your life feels like quicksand? Emily's story isn't just about heartbreak. It's about finding the strength to face the truth, even when it feels like the hardest thing you've ever done. And trust me, what she uncovers next will leave you speechless. So what would you do if everything you thought you knew turned out to be a lie? Keep watching to find out how Emily transformed her pain into a powerful journey of self-discovery, resilience, and unexpected connections. This is a story of mystery, sacrifice, and the undeniable power of truth. Every morning, Emily's alarm would go off before dawn, pulling her out of the cocoon of warmth and comfort. The days were long, starting with her making breakfast while the house was still quiet. It wasn't just the early mornings, it was the feeling of being stretched thin, juggling her teaching career and family responsibilities. Yet, as the sun rose, so did her determination. It's amazing how a steaming cup of coffee and a spark of hope can turn exhaustion into energy. Teaching wasn't just a job for Emily, it was her calling. The chaotic classrooms, the mountains of grading, the ever-curious students, they all tested her patience but filled her soul. She would say, "If you want to learn about sacrifice and truth, spend a day with a teacher." Emily saw her work as a way to shape lives, even if it meant losing a bit of herself along the way. She often wondered, though, if she was missing out on something deeper, something that called her name from the shadows of her routine. Even in her exhaustion, Emily found beauty in the mundane. She found herself inspired by a child's laughter, the quiet moments with her lesson plans, and even the simple pleasure of a homemade sandwich during her lunch break. But there were cracks in her carefully crafted life, small whispers of dissatisfaction that she didn't dare confront. If you've ever paused to question if your sacrifices are worth it, then you've walked a mile in Emily's shoes. Weekends were her escape. Emily loved to explore local bookstores, always searching for something that resonated with her current state of mind. She recently picked up a copy of Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, which felt like it was written just for her. If you're looking for something to reignite your spark, that's a great place to start. It wasn't just about finding books, it was about finding herself in the stories of others. Emily's challenges weren't limited to the classroom. At home, there was the endless rhythm of bills, chores, and an ever-growing list of to-dos. Jack, her husband, seemed supportive, but there were times his presence felt like a shadow more than a partner. If you've ever felt alone in a crowded room, you'd understand her plight. She began to notice his distance, the late nights at the office, and the way his phone seemed glued to his hand. The tension between routine and dreams tugged at her heart, like a melody unresolved. Emily often sat by the window at night, staring into the darkness and wondering if life had more to offer. There was an ache for mystery, for truth, for something beyond the predictable. And then one fateful day, an unexpected discovery shattered her world and opened the door to the unknown. Emily had always thought teaching would be her lifelong purpose, but the spark that once lit her path began to dim. She found herself drained, longing for a fresh start that felt meaningful. One day, on a whim, she tuned into a local radio station and thought, why not me? The idea of using her voice to connect, inspire, and entertain was exhilarating. Sometimes, the leap into the unknown starts with a whisper of curiosity. Starting over wasn't easy, but Emily was no stranger to sacrifice. She enrolled in communication classes while still teaching, often spending late nights practicing her voice. She would record herself, listen back, and refine. If you're thinking about reinventing yourself, consider free online resources like Coursera or Skillshare. They were lifesavers for her. The grind was tough, but it gave her something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Her persistence paid off when a small local station took a chance on her. Emily's first radio show was a mix of awkward pauses and nervous laughs, but the audience loved her authenticity. She realized that embracing imperfection could be a strength, not a weakness. It's a lesson many of us forget. Sometimes, the truth of who you are is what people need most. As Emily gained confidence, her voice became a fixture in the community. People tuned in not just for the music, but for her relatable advice and candid stories. She spoke about everyday struggles, like finding balance in chaos or chasing dreams when the odds feel stacked against you. Her listeners often called in, saying she felt like a friend they'd never met. It reminded her that connection, even over airwaves, is powerful. Before long, an opportunity arose to transition to television. The shift terrified her. After all, radio allowed her to be unseen, to focus solely on her voice. Television, though, required her to show up fully. She debated whether to take the risk, but a mentor once told her, "If it scares you, it's probably worth doing." And so, with trembling hands but a determined heart, she said yes. The move to TV felt like starting over again, but this time, she had more faith in her resilience. As Emily stepped in front of the camera for the first time, she couldn't help but smile. She was living proof that reinvention wasn't just possible, it could be beautiful. Yet, even as she embraced this new chapter, shadows from her past crept closer, hinting at a revelation she never saw coming. It started as an ordinary day. Emily had just dropped Jack off at the airport, their usual morning banter still lingering in her mind. But as she reached over to adjust the passenger seat, something caught her eye, a phone she didn't recognize, tucked under the seat. Her stomach tightened as she picked it up. Why would Jack need a second phone? That was the moment when the thread of mystery began to unravel. The phone was locked, but the notifications told a story Emily didn't want to believe. Messages, pictures, even voicemails, they all pointed to a life she wasn't part of. The truth hit her like a wave, pulling her under with every new discovery. Jack, the man she'd shared her life with, had a second family. It was the kind of heartbreak you read about, but never think will happen to you. She sat in the car for hours, unable to move, unable to think of what to do next. Betrayal, they say, doesn't just break your heart, it shatters your trust in reality. For Emily, the questions were relentless. How long had this been going on? Who was this other woman? Did Jack ever love her at all? The answers were painful, but they were the only way forward. If you've ever faced a truth that feels like it could destroy you, you know the courage it takes to keep looking. Emily knew she couldn't confront Jack over the phone. She spent the next few days piecing together her emotions, oscillating between fury and devastation. Her friends became her lifeline, offering support when her world felt like it was crumbling. It's in these moments of raw vulnerability that you realize who your true allies are. If you're in a similar storm, lean on those who remind you of your strength. When Jack finally returned, Emily's confrontation was quiet but firm. She held up the phone, her hand steady despite the whirlwind inside her. His reaction, silence, then stammering, told her everything she needed to know. The betrayal wasn't just about the second family, it was about the years of deception. The mystery of his late nights, the unexplained absences, it all made sense now. As Emily faced the unraveling of her marriage, she knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where sacrifice and truth would guide her decisions. But first, she needed to redefine what mattered most in her life and find a way to heal. Sometimes, the hardest part of a journey isn't taking the first step, it's knowing which direction to go when the map has been torn apart. Emily's world had crumbled, but she wasn't about to let the weight of betrayal bury her. Instead, she leaned into her friendships, finding solace in the people who showed up when she needed them most. Her best friend Camila was her rock, a voice of reason and a source of unfiltered advice. Over long talks and late-night cups of tea, Emily began to rebuild herself piece by piece. Sometimes, it takes losing everything to realize what truly holds you together. Confronting Jack wasn't just about the betrayal, it was about reclaiming her power. She filed for divorce, not out of spite, but as an act of self-preservation. The process was messy and emotional, but it was also liberating. If you've ever had to make a choice that felt impossible yet necessary, you know the strength it takes. Emily clung to the belief that truth, no matter how painful, was always better than living a lie. Her days became a balancing act of survival and self-discovery. She started therapy, a step that felt daunting at first but turned out to be transformative. Through these sessions, she uncovered not just the cracks in her marriage, but the parts of herself she had ignored for years. If you're considering therapy, know that it's not about fixing yourself, it's about finding clarity in the chaos. Emily also found unexpected joy in small acts of independence. She redecorated her home, swapping the muted tones Jack preferred for vibrant colors that reflected her personality. She signed up for a pottery class, something she'd always wanted to try but never made time for. If you're looking for ways to rediscover yourself, start with one thing you've always loved but put on hold. It could be as simple as picking up a paintbrush or as bold as learning to dance. As she navigated this new reality, Emily discovered the power of saying no. No to obligations that drained her. No to relationships that didn't serve her growth. And most importantly, no to living a life that wasn't her own. Each decision felt like a small victory, a reminder that she was still in control of her story. Though the road ahead was uncertain, Emily felt a growing sense of clarity. She wasn't just surviving, she was transforming. And as she began to find her footing, a chance encounter would soon remind her that life's greatest gifts often come when you least expect them. One crisp autumn afternoon, Emily was walking through the neighborhood when a commotion caught her attention. A young boy's cries echoed from an abandoned building. Without hesitation, Emily followed the sound, her heart pounding. She found Luke, a scared and scrappy 8-year-old, trapped under fallen debris. With determination and quick thinking, she freed him and carried him to safety. Sometimes, acts of courage are the bridges to unexpected connections. Later that day, Emily met Mark, Luke's father, who arrived in a flurry of gratitude and relief. Mark was unassuming but kind, his eyes brimming with appreciation. Emily couldn't help but notice the easy warmth he exuded, a stark contrast to the tension that had defined her previous relationship. Over the next few days, Mark insisted on keeping in touch, eager to express his gratitude. It was the beginning of a friendship rooted in mutual respect and a shared moment of vulnerability. Luke's energy was infectious. Spending time with him reminded Emily of life's simpler joys, laughter, curiosity, and boundless imagination. He quickly became fond of her, often inviting her to join him for his favorite activities, like building Lego cities or hunting for comic books. Emily hadn't realized how much she missed the lightheartedness of childhood until Luke brought it back into her world. It was a reminder that even in the midst of loss, joy could be rediscovered. Mark and Emily's connection deepened over time, though it was unspoken at first. They bonded over shared conversations about life, sacrifice, and their families. Mark confided in her about his struggles as a single father, while Emily shared the journey of rebuilding her life. Their honesty created a safe space, a stark contrast to the secrets she had endured in her past. If you've ever experienced the healing power of genuine connection, you'll understand what Emily felt. Though hesitant, Emily allowed herself to embrace the budding friendship. She found herself looking forward to their conversations, the little moments that felt like reprieves from the chaos of her recent past. With Mark, she didn't have to try so hard to be anything but herself. If you've ever met someone who made you feel seen and understood, you'll know how transformative it can be. Just when life seemed to be settling into a new rhythm, an unexpected twist brought Emily and Mark even closer. It was an opportunity for them to redefine what connection truly meant and to discover whether their paths were meant to intertwine in ways neither of them anticipated. It all started with a request Mark couldn't refuse. His father, Mr. Bernard, was coming to town, and he needed Mark to appear more settled than he truly was. When he hesitantly asked Emily to pretend to be his fiancée for a dinner, she laughed at the absurdity. But then she saw the genuine panic in his eyes. Against her better judgment, she agreed, reasoning that one night of pretense couldn't hurt. Life, after all, had already taught her to expect the unexpected. As the evening approached, Emily found herself strangely nervous. Camila helped her pick out an outfit, a sleek black dress that balanced elegance with simplicity. "You're just playing a role," Emily reminded herself, though her reflection in the mirror told a different story. Dinner with Mr. Bernard turned out to be a mix of charm and high stakes. The older man's sharp wit and probing questions kept her on her toes, but Emily handled it with grace. She hadn't anticipated how natural her dynamic with Mark would feel. Over time, the act extended beyond just one dinner. There were more family events, each blurring the line between pretense and reality. Emily noticed how easily they fell into rhythm: inside jokes, shared glances, and the unspoken understanding of each other's quirks. It felt like they had known each other for years. If you've ever caught yourself wondering whether something staged could evolve into something real, you'd understand the conflicting emotions she faced. Luke, of course, was thrilled by the arrangement. He adored Emily and loved seeing her spend time with his dad. Emily couldn't help but notice how the boy's joy seemed to soften Mark's usual seriousness. They became a trio, sharing movie nights, cooking disasters, and even Luke's favorite Saturday morning pancake tradition. What started as a simple ruse was slowly becoming something far more meaningful. Emily couldn't ignore the growing pull she felt toward Mark. His kindness, his patience, his unwavering support, it was everything she had once believed love could be. But the ghosts of her past whispered warnings. Could she trust this new chapter, or was she setting herself up for heartbreak again? If you've ever been torn between fear and hope, you know how paralyzing that moment can feel. As the holidays approached, Mark surprised Emily with a proposal, not for pretense, but for something real. The moment was raw and honest, devoid of the polished perfection Emily once thought love required. Her heart raced as she realized this was her chance to embrace the life she had always dreamed of, one built on truth and trust. But before she could answer, a revelation from her past came knocking, threatening to disrupt everything once more. Life often throws us curveballs when we least expect them, doesn't it? Emily's journey reminds us that pain, as unbearable as it may seem, can become the catalyst for transformation. But here's the real question: what are you doing with the challenges life hands you? Are you letting them define you, or are you using them to grow stronger? Remember, the truth, no matter how harsh, can be your greatest ally when seeking clarity and purpose. And before you go, don't forget to join our community of learners and dreamers. Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and comment below sharing what resonated most with you. Let's keep exploring stories that ignite change and inspire courage. Together, we can rewrite our narratives and step boldly into the future.